subhanallah. إنما يريد الله يذهب عنكم رجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. You heard his sermons and wished to fight, but your uncle didn't burden you. You were the image of his brother, that's the certain truth, and he wasn't ready to be losing you. Until you gave him a letter and he saw you were purposeful, the tent opened and the curtain drew, and each person thought, has Hassan returned as a turbaned youth? But you are Qasim, and yes, you fought like your father, but they couldn't handle that. They came at you, but you battled back, and only when you turned your back on them, to fix your sandal strap, did they come attack. First on foot, then on saddleback, horses came forth, then trampled back, causing a scramble that left you with tangled limbs and a mangled back. Isn't it funny how something that causes so much pain tastes sweeter than honey? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Salawat. I'm going to recite a poem called Lion. Lion. He is proof that they are lying, and the truth is like a lion. Let it loose, and it will defend itself. Watch how Abbas descended himself from the attended tents down to the lonely river, where he contended, knelt. His prey prayed his heart would sway, but the lion was loyal to his pride. He wouldn't stray. You see, a lion doesn't have to brag about being a lion. It just is. And this lion prowls through weak men hell-bent on injustice. Frowns when they attack, growls loud when his arms are hacked. Crown slips when the arrow in the eyes goes snap. Heart breaks when the water on the ground goes splash. Blood turns his mane red from black, and somewhere another lion falls to the floor, for they broke his back. Salah. Allah. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's come together. Okay. You can both sit on the seat because you're both listening enough. Come on then. Can I pick you up? There you go. Right. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please, bismillah. Yes, both of you.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. كل وليك حجة الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وأيدا حتى تسكنه العزة والجوهر وتنصره فيها طويلا والذكر راهي.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. صلى الله على محمد. أما بعد، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. My elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The ayah of the Holy Quran that I just recited is from Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 21, and it translates as, "You have an excellent role model in the Messenger of Allah for anyone who turns to Allah and remembers Allah frequently." Role models are very important because they set the standard of how to live our life. They are people to ponder on and turn to. Today we'll be talking about role models in Islamic history, how we can be good role models to others, and why young role models are important. The Quran has numerous examples of both good and bad role models. Starting with the good, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about Bibi Maryam sallallahu alayha. For her piety, or Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, for his faith. The list of prophets of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam sent to us is very long, but every one of those people was an excellent example of how we should be living our lives. On the other hand, there are examples of bad role models too. Allah tells us about the people of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam who wouldn't listen to him when he was preaching, or perhaps worse yet, how the Fir'aun believed he was a god. Repeatedly in the Quran, we are told to distance ourselves from these kind of people and seek refuge in the words of Allah. As the ayah states, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the best of examples for us because his every behavior modeled how we should act on a daily basis. For example, he showed kindness and respect to the lady who threw rubbish at him. He was truthful and trustworthy, as given the title of a Sadiq al-Amin. In fact, our Prophet was so trustworthy that when people went traveling, they would leave their valuables with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam because he was the most trustworthy person in society. Our Prophet was so patient with so many people and was able to forgive them over and over again. For example, if someone was to hurt you at school and then the next day they came to say sorry, you'll accept their apology. But let's say they come back and hurt you again and then they apologize, you might forgive them one more time. But if it keeps happening again and again and again and again, eventually you're going to get fed up. But our Prophet never gave up on anybody and always gave others multiple chances. Another role model is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Amir al-Mu'mineen was known for his bravery and courage. He was the strongest warrior of his time, and people would be scared of him even after just looking at him. Imam Ali was also known for his kind heart, generosity, and justice. He taught us to always be giving charity. As an example of this, one day, Imam Ali alayhi salam was leading prayers and a beggar came to him to ask for charity. Without hesitation, Imam Ali alayhi salam allowed the beggar to take the ring from his finger whilst he was in ruku, Shortly after that, verse 55 of Surah Ma'idah was revealed. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويأتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. This translates as, your guardian is Allah, His Messenger, and the believers, those who perform prayers and give charity whilst bowing down. Imam Ali alayhi salam taught us to give charity in any way that we could. So on the night of the 19th of Muharram, after Imam Ali alayhi salam had been struck, it was the orphans of Kufa that realized that the man who would come to give them charity in the darkness of the night was Imam Ali alayhi salam, because he would go out at night and feed them without revealing his identity, because if the right hand gives charity, the left hand shouldn't know about it. How can we be good role models? A role model is someone to look up to and think about. When trying to change or work on ourselves, it is important to look at the attributes of your role model and how they act. Then look at how to apply them in your day-to-day life by setting goals or reminders. For example, let's say my goal is to give sadaqah like Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and I want to give 50p a day for a whole year. Over a whole year, I'll have given over £180 without realizing. So I've set my goal. Now I just need to remember to give 50p a day. I could put the sadaqah box by the door so that every time I leave the house, it will be there to remind me so I don't forget. Soon I'll have given so much sadaqah that I'll be able to do it without thinking about it, and I won't even need a reminder. Sometimes it can be the little things that make the difference. And even if the next year I find I want to give more than 50p, I can, because I'll have built up to that, and it will be easy for me. How can we be good role models to others? We think that being the younger ones, salawat. We think that being the younger ones that we need to be led by the elder ones, but that's not the full picture. We need to identify where we can be role models, to whom. I'll give you an example. During Muharram, we hear a lot about Sayyidah Sakina sallallahu alayha, that there are multiple actions she performed before Karbala. Whenever it was Salah time, Bibi Sakina sallallahu alayha would take out Imam Hussein alayhi salam's prayer mat and would be sitting there waiting for our Imam to come and say his prayers. She did not need to remind Imam Hussein alayhi salam to say his prayers, but she took the responsibility of making sure that he could pray on time. In our own homes, we can keep an eye on the time and set out the prayer mats in advance of Salah times. If everyone prays on time, then the thawab of those prayers will be for us. Where should we look for our role models? Just as important as being a role model to others, we need to identify people to be good role models for us. We are very lucky to have the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt as countless examples of good behavior, and we need to keep their teachings close to heart. When choosing our friends, we need to ask ourselves whether we agree with the actions of those friends and whether their behaviors will have a good effect on us. For example, if we're playing with a group of friends and some people start to bully another person, we have to realize that those people are not good role models, and we need to speak up and support the person being bullied. We should spend time actively looking for role models who will help us. We need to look at other people's behaviors and try to stay close with people whose behavior we admire. For example, if we know someone takes their prayers seriously and always prays on time, we need to be around them in order to establish our own prayer habit. Keeping good company, questioning the actions of others and ourselves, and being very mindful of our actions will help us to ensure that we are only surrounded by good influences and that we keep a distance from negative behaviors. Throughout the tragedy of Karbala, there were numerous stories of role models that we need to keep close to our hearts, even despite the suffering and 3 days without water. These people were so pure and steadfast in their beliefs that they shone with their exemplary behavior. For me, the person that I connect with the most is Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam, from the day he was born, was committed to the service of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Bibi Ummul Baneen sallallahu alayha taught Hazrat Abbas that his role on this earth was to serve the Ahlul Bayt and remain loyal to them. On the journey from Medina to Mecca, Mecca to Kufa, and then Kufa to Karbala, he did just that. Not just the flag bearer for Imam Hussein alayhi salam's army, but he looked after the women and children, made sure they were safe on their camels, and handed water to the children first. On the day of Ashura, Abbas alayhi salam would ask his master if he could go and fight. The response was always no. But he did not argue. Instead, he accepted that he couldn't, until Bibi Sakina asked him if he could go and get water. So Hazrat Abbas went to approach his master and asked him if he could go and get the water. He said, "Go and ask your sister Zainab." When he asked her, she started crying. She said, "When my father Ali showed me the streets of Kufa, I asked him why I needed to know. I have 18 brothers. He replied, there will be a time where you will have no brothers and you will be paraded on these streets. Now I know why. Abbas, I grant you permission to get water." So as Hazrat Abbas got on his horse, Imam Hussein alayhi salam told Abbas to give him his sword. Without hesitation, Abbas does as he is told. He rides out to the river, and the army of Yazid move away from him, as they're scared of him. He gets off his horse and puts his hands in the cold water. But then he thought of his master and his sister. He filled up the flask and got back on his horse. Umar ibn Sa'ad says, "If the water reaches the camp, we'll be finished. Attack him from all angles." So a man is waiting behind a palm tree, and he strikes the right arm of Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. Then he quickly switches the flask into his left arm. So another man is waiting behind a palm tree, and he strikes the left arm of Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. He quickly switches the flask into his right arm, and then arrows come at him from all angles. One pierces the flask of Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. As the water spills out, so does the courage of Abbas alayhi salam. He tries to turn the horse around when an arrow hits his eye. He tries to pull the arrow out with his knees when a man comes and strikes him on the head. He fell to the ground, but when someone falls, they have their hands to protect them. But when Abbas fell, he had no hands to protect him. He calls out, "Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah." Imam al-Hussein starts running to the battlefield. He sees the body of Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam on the floor. He puts the head of Hazrat Abbas in his lap. Hazrat Abbas removes the head. Imam al-Hussein puts Hazrat Abbas's head back in his lap. Hazrat Abbas removes the head once again. Imam Hussein asks, "Why do you remove your head from my lap?" And the reply comes, whose head will you rest your head in your last moments? Who will comfort you in your time of need? Hazrat Abbas then says, "I have two requests for you, Ya Mawla. One, do not take my body back to the tent, as I do not want to disappoint Sakina. Two, you were the first face I saw, and I wish for you to be the last. Wipe the blood from my eyes so I can see you one more time." Imam Hussein does as he is requested, and then he says, "I have one request for you, my brother. All your life you've called me master. For one time, can you call me brother?" As Hazrat Abbas says, "My brother Hussein," and he departs from this world. Imam Hussein walks back to the tent empty-handed, with nothing to show for it. He says, "Now my backbone is broken. Ala la'natullahi ala qawmi zalimin. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un."
If we stand for my do you want that playing in the background? Okay.
We are the Shia of Ali. We are the Shia of Ali. Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali. We know that we will face torture and pain, but that will never stop us from calling your name. We'll hold your flag up high as it touches the sky, holding tight to the rope of hope we fight. With your strength in our sight, we will never fall. We are the Shia of Ali. We are the Shia of Ali. Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali. This is our pride and dignity. Our master is Ali. We can face every pain and every single difficulty. We call him with our hearts, and he hears our cries. Ya Ali, we beseech you, help us, please. And that once he does proceed, he will never fall. We are the Shia of Ali. We are the Shia of Ali. Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali. The successor of Muhammad, for Islam his blood was shed. Once did he leave the Prophet, army from the army remained ahead in the battle of Hundar. I burned warrior, fierce lion of Allah, Ali Allah. We will never fall. We are of Ali. We are the Shia of Ali. Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali. Our souls has promised our Lord, Labbaika Ya Ali. We will stand as your Shia wherever we may be. We'll mourn for your son and show the world who we are. In our veins, Ya Hussein, your name remains. We'll remember all your pains. We'll never fall. We are the Shia of Ali. We are the Shia of Ali. Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali. Came to Karbala, from Majlis to Karbala. I give my life to God. I give my life in service to God. To Karbala, from Najaf to Karbala. Walking to Karbala, from Najaf to Karbala. I give my
to Karbala. Abdullah saying, go and pack your bag, let's go to the land of Karbala. Hussein said, we cannot be late. All right. Hussein. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allah Ahad. Allah Samad. Lam Yalid. Kufuwan Bismillah. مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین وہ عابد بیمار تھا وہ عابد بیمار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور شام کا بازار کا اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی سینے پہ جو شاخ پلی سینے پہ جو شاخ پلی جس کی ابا بن میں جلی جس کی ابا بن میں جلی منہ پر تمام جو کہ نشان مولا حق امام یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین پیاسا گلا خنجر چلے پیاسا گلے خنجر چلے چادر چینی خیمے جلے چادر چینی خیمے جلے عباس کے پرچم تلے عباس کے پرچم تلے روحی زمین مولا حق امام یا حسن مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا
السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا سيدتي يا فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت بقي الليل والنهار السلام عليك وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذريتك لا سيما حجة الله بن الحسن صلوات الله وسلم عليهم أجمعين اللهم صل على
اللهم كتب حتى حسن صلواتك
عليه وعلى آبائه في هذا الساعة تبارك الساعة وجعل وحسنا قائلا ونوسنا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه البشائرها وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا محمد وآله